See what we can get going here. There we go. Give people a minute to get in here. Black Sheep. Welcome, 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 welcome. All right. Scoot over here. Welcome to another... You saw me on Instagram. Hey, what's up, Joey? All right. Welcome to another fucking live watch-along. We're going to be watching President Trump lead a cabinet meeting today. So... who knows? He just met with Netanyahu yesterday. We'll see if there's any word on that. Let's get the show on the road.
There's a lot of room over here. See an engine move out to the end if you way out to the left. Are you able to get them all in the room? Are they in?
Yes, sir.
Are you okay? Thank you very much. We've had a tremendous 6 months, and we've had a tremendous 2 weeks, which now is, I guess, 3 weeks. And we have a tremendous group of people here that have done a great, unified, beautiful job. I want in particular, because of what she's gone through
the one big, beautiful job.
Has done an incredible job. As you know, Christy, I'm going to ask you to say a few words about Texas. The first person there was the first person I saw on television was you, actually. And you've worked great with the governor, who's terrific. And you might want to tell a little bit about the trials and tribulations, but we appreciate the job that you and everybody have done. You had people there as fast as anybody's ever seen. So really appreciate it. We all do. And maybe you could say a few words.
Well, thank you, Mr. President. I want to thank you for your leadership. Texas is strong, and the people of Texas are incredibly strong. They've gone through something that is absolutely horrific.
It's
and
bad
it's
out there,
heartbreaking
guys.
to watch these families.
It's bad. It's not good in
suffer
Texas.
the way that they are. As soon as this flash flooding event happened, you know, the governor has activated his emergency responders. Nim Kidd is his emergency management director, who is incredible, and has immediately worked with the local first responders to get help to individuals and get them evacuated, put requests in to me. We deployed, sir, right away, as you know, because you and I were talking a lot during this time, the Coast Guard. We also had some assets out of Customs and Border Protection. Our board TAC teams went in and helped with rescues and
Interesting.
clearing
Border
debris so that
teams
we
went
could
in
get
for rescues during the floods.
roads open and people get the
You're
help
not seeing
that
that
they
get
need.
publicized
I think
very
when I got
much.
there the most, sir, that day, as soon as I arrived on site, was getting a briefing from all the emergency responders, was just how unified they were in focusing on the fact that we're there to save lives. They were there to rescue people, find people who were still alive, and to reunify them with their family members. We as a federal government don't manage these disasters. The state does. We come in and support them, and that's exactly what we did here in this situation. FEMA went to an enhanced level immediately, but as soon as you signed the major disaster declaration, we were able to get them resources and dollars right away, just like you envisioned, through state block grants to help them with cleanup. And we're still there in presence, and FEMA's been deployed, and we're cutting through the paperwork of the old FEMA, streamlining it much like your vision of how FEMA should operate, and it's been a much better response to help these families get through this terrible situation. We still are looking for people. We're still looking for a lot of little girls and other family members that were camping along that river, and they will continue until they find every single person, and we will continue to help them and assist in that. I was surprised when I got there at the camp that day, right after this happened, the parents that were there, the parents that were looking for their children and picking up their daughter's stuffed animals out of the mud and finding
Gosh.
your daughter's shoe. That
Anybody
might be
watching from Texas?
laying in the
I hope
cabin,
you're all safe.
And,
Anybody in
just
here
hugging
from
and
Texas?
comforting people matters a lot. I'm extremely grateful for God's hand in that whole situation, because hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people were saved. And this is a time for all of us in this country to remember that we were created to serve
God's
each other.
hand is sort of an interesting thing,
God
right?
created
Because
us to take care of each
she's
other.
saying that
And
God
that
helped
when we
all
do
those
that,
people,
we are
but
happier,
God
we
also
are
created
more
the
fulfilled,
weather
and we
situation.
can walk alongside people on
Isn't
their
that an
worst
act of
day
God?
and help them get
I would
through
say
it
that
and
the
come
people,
out the other side.
people really came
um,
through, not
knowing
God.
that we can
But maybe it was God.
that we
What
can
do I know?
continue to live a life that God has purpose for us.
Do you guys
So
think it was
I'm
God
grateful
or
for
the
you.
people who
several times
saved
the day after
others?
the flooding, you and Melania were on the phone with me, and I want to thank you for that. That meant the world. I was able to tell many of those folks that I had been visiting with you, and that you had said, whatever they need, Christy, let's deploy it and get it down there and be helpful. And on Sunday, when the families were waiting at a church to identify their children's bodies,
Thanks,
Franklin
Raymond
Graham,
Dulo.
and I called in and prayed with the families and read some scripture with them, and he was incredible in making himself available to that as well. We'll be back down there in a couple of days and continue to do all we can, but this is an unprecedented event. It really is. There's been tragedies like this around the country, but everyone is unique in different situations, and the response the federal government had supporting the state through this, I'm proud of the people that stepped up and immediately came. The Coast Guard, when they came in, they had a difficult time even getting the aircraft in and landed. They had to try several times in the weather to get it in and deploy, and I think we've heard about
Oh, I got
our
someone
one
from Central
Coast Guard
Texas.
member that was responsible for saving over 165 people, but that entire crew did incredible work. And all the first responders there did incredible work. And I know people are getting tired now, but they're getting reinforcements and volunteers are showing up. And I just want to commend the governor and his team for being the leaders. And they're so thankful that you're letting them make the decisions and manage the response like it should be. And then us supporting them with the resources of the federal government. We've already deployed dollars to the state, much like the block grants that you've talked about.
Right.
So they're grateful for that, sir.
There's never been a wave like this outside of the breaking of a dam. Because this was almost a wave that ended up being 30 feet high, more, actually. Now, with the dam, you can understand it, but this approached almost with that speed. When you see a dam break, it's not a pretty sight. It wipes out everything, and this is the kind of thing that built up so fast. And it's happened 2 or 3 times before.
It
over
was
the years,
fast and it was
but not
bad.
to this extent. But tell them when you
You
met
know,
the father who was picking
If
up.
this had happened while Democrats were in
I
office,
had walked through the cabin. where all
I
the
have a
little
feeling
girls
they'd be
died,
talking shit about it, but
And I
that's just
I had
speculation.
kind of fallen apart in there, but I walked out of the cabin, and a gentleman was standing there, and he said, that man over there needs a hug. And so I walked over to him and I hugged him and I said, do you work here? And he said, no, my little girl was in that cabin. And he said, and I just found her best friend
Ugh.
about an hour and a half ago. She had passed away.
Thank God Christy Nome was there
And
to
he
give
just
him a
felt
hug.
hurt. And so then we just hugged and talked for probably an hour about that. But then there was the grandpa was there looking for his granddaughter as well. There was a dad there of one of the counselors. The counselor was alive, but she was dealing with the fact that she had hung on to some of these girls and was trying to keep them out of the floodwaters and had gotten hit by something and had lost 2 of the girls and wasn't able to hang on to them and was going to live the rest of her life thinking about that moment when she wasn't able to hang on to these girls. But these parents were picking up their kids' belongings out of the mud and throughout the camp and putting them in bags and
Really awful.
and then one of the dads said, I knew 50 of these girls here. So I knew that was her dress, it's my daughter's friend's dress. So
Oh.
he was picking it up and putting it in a bag to return to her parents.
Oof.
So it was and then the director was there comforting everybody who had lost his father the night before too, and he was still there trying to facilitate all of these parents grieving their children and find them. So the strength of people is incredible. One of the things that I asked there today, that day, was that they all have escorts or counselors when parents come in. That, so from that point, that when they came into the camp, that they have somebody with them when they're going and looking for their children's belongings or looking for their children. And so, very emotional, but also,
Boy, this is
just
very
so tragic.
different
You
The
don't-
relationship with
from the
Texas
previous
and the
disasters that I've
government,
heard these
obviously
people
very
talk
good for
about.
years with me, but the relationship with Texas and their first responders and us with our first responders and lots of other people, and we brought in a lot of helicopters from all over, and we had a lot of helicopters. It was actually dangerous, a lot of helicopters up there, but they were real pros, and they were responsible for pulling out a lot of people, and we got them there fast, and Texas had some good ones too. But the response has been incredible, and the fact that we got along so well, I don't know, that's not, I don't even think that's a political thing, but we got along
Well,
so
it is,
well,
though.
and it was
It 100% is a
so unified. I think
political
lot of
thing.
lives have been
Because
saved. It could have been
because when
as
you didn't
bad
get
as it
along with
was.
Gavin Newsom,
And you could
everyone
always
knew
double or
about it.
triple. This thing was just really horrible. Well, congratulations on a great job, and appreciate it. I know you're going down. I'll be going down on Friday with First Lady. We'll be taking a trip, and we don't want to get in anyone's way because
taking a trip.
That's what happens. The president goes, and everyone's around focused on. I don't want anyone to focus on us, but.
But wait, when
it's
President
possible we
Biden
could
didn't
have-
go to
we
North
could have
Carolina, that was a
somebody
huge
say
problem.
still, you know,
He didn't go
there's a lot of
immediately. That was a
areas.
huge
It's
problem.
a big area, and you know, it's probably unlikely at this point, but there could be. I mean, they're thinking there could be the possibility, but what a tragic situation. A good job, and we'll see you on Friday, and we'll finish out the day here. I think you've been reading.
Getting a little long
about,
in the
it's
back
a
there, Don.
Terrible topic when you talk about financial after this, but we have a big country. and
What
we're
if he
doing
grew-
very well. The tariffs, as you know, are starting to
what do you
come
call
in
it?
at
Not a
record
rat
levels.
tail.
Tremendous amounts of money.
What's it called?
coming in.
Business in the front,
Never
party in
did
the
that
back?
before.
Why am I blanking on the
Usually
word?
We only have tariffs.
Help
going
me
on.
out here.
We only adhered to the rules of other nations who charge us tremendous tariffs because we were led by stupid people or people without any business sense.
A mullet, thank you.
And,
Do you think he's going for the mullet? Mullets are back, right? Mullets are
A
in.
little bit about how well we're doing with regard
Should he
to
do the shaved side
money
mullet?
coming in. And the big money will start coming in on August 1st. I think it was made clear today by the letters that were sent out yesterday and today.
You can go to
Right.
youtube.com/Kellerman Comedy, comedy with a K, if you want to see
in
what I'm
tariff
talking about.
income thus far this year, and that's with the tariffs.
Danny's got
the
a
major
mullet.
Tariffs not having started till the second quarter, so we could expect that could be well over 300 billion by the end of the year. We don't agree with CBO scoring, but for those who do, the CBO scored tariff income over the next 10 years at 2.8 trillion, which we think is probably low. And, you know, sir, under your leadership, we're
And they
witnessing.
gave us no credit during this last little, the great, big, beautiful bill. I always use the word great. I add that to it because it really is what it is. It's never been anything like it, actually.
Yeah, it's not
And
called
I
the
wanna
Great
thank
Big
all the
Beautiful Bill.
Republicans
It's
that
the one big beautiful
voted
bill.
for it, and I want to, scold the Democrats because they're voting for tax cuts. They're voting for no tax on tips, no tax on social security, no tax on overtime, and many, many other things far more important than that. Great health care.
Great
And
health
frankly,
care.
every
Interesting.
Democrat should lose their election because it was purely political. They were told not to
Every
vote for it. So
Democrat
think of
should
it. We got
lose their election.
218 to
Well,
2.
that wouldn't be very
And then
democratic.
in the Senate, we had 50 to 3. Democrats didn't vote at all, not one positive vote, with all of the good things in there. Economic development money, tremendous border
A
money.
lot of things
Now
that people
you're
don't agree with in
Loaded
there.
up on the border.
To be clear,
And I don't think we're gonna need so much.
that's the
of it,
problem with
'cause
one big beautiful
we had-
bill. You know, if
we
all
had
those
zero
things
come in last
had
month,
been
so I'm not sure
separate
how
in
much
its
of it
own
we want
little
spent.
bit
You may think
beautiful
about
bill,
that. You may actually
that
think
might have
about saving
passed
a lot of money.
with
Because
more
we'll
Democratic
launch the
votes
bill.
than
And it
this one that
obviously
also
would,
had a
but
bunch of
you
things that
may
helped
wanna
billionaires
think
and
about that.
business owners.
But, so I think it's incredible when I watch the Democrats and they have standard lines like they had Russia, Russia, Russia. They had the laptop from hell. It all came from Russia. You know, they make.
Why are
they
we
make
still
things
talking
up.
about this shit?
They go with it and they feed it to you people in many cases, and they said, "Here's our line." And I hear the new line is death. Oh, it's death. Everyone's going to die. There's nothing to do with that. In fact, we're saving our country. Death is from allowing 25 million people into our country, of which 3 or 4 are stone cold, hard criminals. 11,888 are murderers, many of them committing more than one murder. That's death, and the Democrats did
You
that.
took
Joe
care
Biden
of
did
it.
that
He took
by
care of it.
allowing people to come in here, just totally unchecked, unvetted, open borders, open borders.
And
whole
now the
world
borders are
was
closed
dumped
and you're
into our
deporting
country,
everybody.
From prisons,
That's
from gangs,
we can forget about it.
from
It's
mental
done.
institutions. We have many people.
You don't have to
walking
convince
the
us
streets,
anymore.
walking
You've already
in
you're
areas
doing
that
it.
we don't know anything about that came out of.
I don't know why he keeps talking
insane
about it like
asylums.
this.
They released their insane asylums.
Could you imagine if a basketball
Insane
player
asylum
talked about the
population
one basket he
into
made
our
every
country,
game?
and we're-
Every time he
it's
just talked
amazing
about
the
that
job
one basket he
you
made
and
that
Tom
one
Homan
time.
are doing, by the way, on that. But we have to get them out, and we have no choice. We have to get them out, and we are getting them out.
This is totally
So,
unrelated, by the way, to the floods
Pete,
in
you want
Texas.
to tell them about our
Which
great
is
military?
what we
and
were
what
talking
did
about.
With respect to the bombers and the B-2, we had the pilots here 2 days ago, and they were incredible people. Go ahead.
Yes, sir. Truly a historic mission and demonstrating the skill and courage of the United States military. From those B-2 pilots and families that we had a chance to meet, sir.
Are they
to the
justifying
fighter
the
pilots, to
Iran
refuelers,
thing
to the
again?
maintainers, to the air defenders who defended the base. What was demonstrated on the world stage was American military might and capability.
I'm
And
so
it wasn't
confused.
just
This is last
Fordo
week's
and Isfahan
news.
and Natanz that took notice in Iran. It was the rest of the world. That we have a decisive commander-in-chief willing to use these capabilities, which are the best in the world, as the president pointed out. No one else could have done what America did there on that night, and everyone took notice of that.
We've heard all
with the
this.
one big beautiful bill, sir. We've got 150 billion additional to invest in Golden Dome and all the other weapon systems and stockpiles and shipbuilding. And
Lots of
priority
military
wars.
spending in the one big beautiful
another month,
bill.
Another historic recruiting bump. It's not just the Army and the Marine Corps anymore. It's the Navy, the Air Force, and the Space Force, all historically ahead of where they've ever been. So historic spirit inside the military. We had a chance to be at NATO, Marco and I, and see how the world responds to us saying it's time for you to shoulder the burden and take the lead for your continent. It only happens with President Trump leading. And we're proud to be a part of what's going on at the border, sir.
Yeah, only
with
under
Florida
Donald
National
Trump
Defense
do we
Area,
say
where
you
we're
other countries are on
getting
your
to that
own.
Number 0 in securing the border. But that mission, Operation Midnight Hammer, re-established deterrence.
Was it called that
reversed what
originally?
happened
I
in
only heard them
Afghanistan.
start
We saw
calling
the
that
debacle
recently.
of what Biden allowed to happen in Afghanistan, and what that did to our image. President Trump said, with Operation Midnight Hammer, we're reestablishing American leadership and deterrence, and we're proud to be a part of it, sir.
And our so-called enemies were watching. They watched every minute of it. They watched. There was very few people that weren't watching, actually. But they watched
Everyone
every
was
minute. It was
watching.
a perfect military performance.
Higher ratings
the
than
likes of which we
SNL
haven't seen
that
in
week.
a long time. I mean, if you compare that to the same country, the hostages from years ago, Jimmy Carter, it was unfortunate for Jimmy Carter. He was a nice man, but with the helicopters going down, the sandstorms, the prisoners, they get captured, then the election and the prisoners and Reagan and all the problems. It was nothing but problems. And,
What is he talking about?
And that was a failure. And ours was not only the pilots. I mean,
The whole
those
history
machines
of the
flew for
United
37
States?
straight hours. They
From
didn't
Jimmy
stop.
Carter to Reagan?
They went skedaddle. You know the word skedaddle? It means skedaddle. They dropped the bombs and somebody said, skedaddle. Let's get the hell out of here. And every bomb hit its mark and hit it incredibly. And as you know, the Atomic Energy
They just heard
Commission
the
said
word
it's
skedaddle
gone.
for the first
That
time.
place is gone. We had a lot of fake reporting, mostly from CNN, where
Mostly from CNN.
CNN, who should be fired, by the way. She was
CNN should be
involved
fired.
with 51 fake intelligence agents, if you remember that. She did that story, created a story out of it. She created a story out of the laptop from hell, saying it came from Russia, but it actually came from Hunter
You
Biden's
already said this part.
bedroom, or worse. Just a scammer, and she's still at CNN, which is pretty amazing. But we'll ask you a question about her. But they came up with this concept that maybe the attack wasn't that good. Maybe it, and I saw it happen right after the attack. I saw this person on CNN. I actually watch. I like to watch the enemy. You learn from the enemy. And I
The
watched
enemy.
where they're coming from. And I watched
Referring to
this thing,
CNN as the enemy
you
is
know,
wild.
I'm hearing stories that
Maybe a
maybe
big
they
slant
didn't
stuff
hit their
against him,
target,
but
maybe
the
it wasn't
enemy
that
is a
good
bit
hit.
much.
And hearing stories. The next day, it
He
was
has
a little
actual
more.
enemies.
The next day, a little more. After 3-4 days, she was saying, I don't know. I don't think it was that. Except by that time, everybody knew it was hit perfectly. The evidence is in the planes. The pilots are their best evidence. But they actually came out of their plane because they were here the other day, and they said, it was so sad. We did such a good job. We flew into very dangerous airspace. I'll never forget, we were in the Situation Room, and they said they have entered Iranian airspace, and everyone took a deep breath because they had more missiles pointing at them, but the equipment is so good, it's stealth, way up in the air, and it was stealth, and they went right through.
Way up there.
And they sort of, by the time
These
they found
planes
out they
fly
were
way up
already
there.
gone. That was the word skedaddle, get the hell out of here. But they were right in the most dangerous airspace in the world.
Skedaddle is a
It's big,
technical
beautiful,
military
very
term, I
fast.
think.
They're unbelievable planes. I mean, they become really beautiful works of art. I always thought they sort of were cool, but now they look better than just cool, don't they? Huh? But they drop those and literally.
What's cooler
if you-
than being cool?
If you look at this,
They're
town,
ice
from
cold.
here to there, they had a half a refrigerator door is the way to best explain it.
Oh
Take a
my
refrigerator
God.
Door, average size, cut it in half.
What are we doing
That was
here?
their target.
We already said all
They hit
this.
Every single one. Then we had 30 missiles, Tomahawk shot from submarines 300 miles away. Every one of them hit their target. It was a perfect mission. Then they came back.
It was a
Almost
perfect
37
mission.
hours.
They hit their target, which
Every
was the
plane
size
was
of a
perfect.
refrigerator
The
door.
mechanics
It was
were
a
here
huge
too. I
success.
said, "You gotta get
Everything
the
was
mechanics
obliterated.
here. We didn't have any problems.
We know.
If you remember, they had a lot of problems with the helicopters, but they did fly through a dust storm, which they should.
Someone
have
says
done.
they're unfollowing,
Sometimes
but
you
I don't
say,
know why.
Let's go back and try it on a nicer day. Dust and sand don't work well with helicopters if you know much about helicopters, but that was a horrible embarrassment to us. Then we had Afghanistan. which
People
I
are
think was the
unfollowing
most
because I think that
embarrassing moment in the
I'm
history
annoyed
of our
that Trump is
country. We would've
repeating
gotten
all
out.
of these
I was-
things
I was the one that got him
he
down.
has
I would've
said,
kept
and he's
Bagram,
just
the
rambling.
airways, which right
No
now
one
is
asked him
controlled
about
by
any of
China.
these things.
One among the most powerful runways in the world.
Most powerful
Thick
runways.
with concrete and steel.
Concrete and
Anything could
steel.
land, and
Not like all the other
1 hour
runways.
away from where China makes its nuclear weapons. I was keeping it. Outside of that, we were leaving, and I would have been out faster than them, but we would have gotten out with strength and dignity. Instead, that was the most botched up mess I've ever seen. They left all that equipment behind, and every year they have a parade running down some third-rate street with the equipment. It's supposed to be Fifth Avenue. It doesn't work. But with all that equipment that they left, I should have taken every ounce of it. No, I was taking every. I said every screw, every bolt, every nail you take out of there. And Millie said, I remember one time, "So we're better off leaving the equipment." Why? Well, it's cheaper. I said, cheaper? You mean it's cheaper to leave a $150 million airplane rather than flying into Pakistan?
Yeah, what do you guys think
or
about
someplace, or
the
just flying
botched
straight
leaving of
overseas?
Afghanistan?
Yes, sir. That's when I knew he was an idiot.
My understanding
Didn't take long to
is
figure that one
that
out. But,
Donald Trump
they left all
botched
that
the
equipment, but they left
handoff.
their dignity behind.
That-
It was
that
the most
Trump had
embarrassing
initiated
moment, in
it,
my opinion,
And
in the history
then
of our country. Not that we
instead of
got out, we
cooperating
should
and
have
handing
not
over
been
the
there,
operation,
but that
he
we
just
got
didn't
out
give
the
them
way
any
we got out
information,
was
and that's
great
when
embarrassment
everybody
and death,
kind of just
and
left
13
without.
young people
knowing
got
what
to
was
know
going
their
on.
families very well, but you
It
had
happened during the
hundreds of people
transition
killed
from
that
Trump to
nobody talks
Biden.
about. Yet the other side, many people were killed. Many people are walking around with no legs, no arms from that whole thing.
How are they walking
Left
around
from
with
the
no
wrong airport.
legs?
They should have left from Bagram because Bagram was a big base with hundreds of miles
Wild.
of fencing and territory.
You got
around
people
it.
walking around with no
Nobody
legs.
able to get near it.
Scary.
And they left. So we've done a great job, and I think people are really starting
Oh,
to see
that's
it. They're
the
starting
point
to
you were getting
appreciate
at?
it. Pete's done fantastically. That mission
Oh wow.
was a work of art, and I have
Did not
spoken
see it
some
coming
of
back to
our,
us doing a good job.
Perceived, I don't know if they're enemies, but they're perceived as being potential enemies, and they essentially said the same thing. Very impressive. It
What?
wasn't a thing that
Sorry,
we
I'm sorry.
knew
He
it was an
just
engine.
called CNN the enemy,
It just-
and then said, "I'm not
they
sure
cheered.
if the Iranians
The
are
sad thing was
enemies."
They were cheered, and one of the pilots said, "We were a little concerned because when we got out, We were told that
Okay,
on television.
just so
that
we're all on the same
we may have
page.
missed our targets. Sir,
The
we hit
Iranians
every
have been
target. That's what I
enemies
do
of
for a
the
living.
US.
We hit every target. In fact,
As
when I
long as
saw
I've been
when
alive.
we dropped, when the bombs hit,
Even if they're not
yellow
attacking us,
haze
they
came
hate
over the
us. It's
horizon
very well known.
that I've never seen before. It just lit up the whole horizon, brighter than the sun. It was like looking into the sun. He goes, we hit our target, because you know what that was exploding. And, but they were a little downbeat because they listened to that fake CNN reporting and the fake New York Times. They worked together to try and say that it wasn't perfect. They couldn't say what they missed. All they could say is, maybe it wasn't perfect. And you would have fired that reporter
Trump,
immediately.
You're.
should fire
This
her.
is sort of silly because
real
they didn't
fake.
just make it up.
And,
They weren't just
so
like,
just
oh,
wanna
I think it was a
congratulate
miss.
those pilots.
There was
You know, a lot of
some
people
leaked
don't like
documents
bringing things like that
that
up. I
showed
always
that
like
didn't
confronting,
show the
because
full
otherwise the
extent
public
of
doesn't know that
the
you're a bunch of
damage.
crooked people. But
And then later,
you know,
the
but,
full report
and the
came
media
out
has to
and
straighten
showed that
out
the
their
damage
act. You know, the
was
media's down to
that there was a
17%
lot of
approval.
damage, and that it's
You
not
gotta
like
do a
they
little better than
backtracked.
that. It's important for the country that
You know, once they
that
couldn't
there are
lie
required
anymore or
changes.
something
I think
like that.
changes are
They-
gonna make to the
they-
media, but
They reported on bad
it's hard
information
to have
that
a
came
really
out early,
successful
and then
country
later
that
they
have a
reported
corrupt
on
media, and we really
the
have a
more
corrupt
complete
media.
information.
And nobody really knows why. I mean, why would you want to have open borders and criminals pouring into our country? Why would you want to have men playing in women's sports, transgender for everyone? You know, you'll have to figure that out. But some of you don't. I mean, I'm looking at some people, they love the country, but I look at other people and they can't. But we were really proud of our military. It was, and the people that maybe don't like us or want to play games with us, because I think that had you not had the situation in Afghanistan, I don't think Putin would have gone in. I think when Putin looked
Pure
at how
conjecture.
stupid and incompetent that operation was, he said, wow, this might be a chance. And we're dealing with him now too. We're not happy with Putin. I'm not happy with Putin.
Yeah,
I can tell you that much right
Putin
now.
doesn't do
He's
what we
killing a
want
lot of
them to
people.
do. Him,
And a lot
his
of them are
invasion of
soldiers.
Ukraine,
His
though
soldiers and their
likely
soldiers,
a
most
result of things the previous
and it's now up to
administration
7,000
did,
a week, and I'm not happy with
not
Putin.
related to,
Okay.
to
Any
what he's
questions?
talking
Yes.
about.
Yes, sir.
Not related to
Just so you're
Afghanistan.
not
It
happy
can't
with
be.
Vladimir Putin. Is there anything that you plan to do to act on that feeling of
I
having
wouldn't be telling you. Don't we want to have a little surprise? You know, one of the things we did.
Don't you want a
with the
little
attack is
surprise?
that, and you asked that question. I didn't mean to be rude, but I'm in a rude because I'm looking at some of these crooked people up here. So I'm rude, but your question was asked very nicely. But one of the things we did is
He's a little cranky, I think.
went over every
I've never
fact.
seen him
We went
apologize
every
to someone
fact
before,
straight.
though.
We wanted
That
to
was
have
pretty
the
good.
distance straight,
He's a little
the number of
self-aware.
pilots straight. Everything had to be correct because we want to be. This was a very important mission. If we failed on this mission, it was beyond the war that obviously we had with Iran and Israel. A lot of hatred, a lot of years and years of hatred, centuries of hatred.
But maybe
and
they're not
people
enemies.
have never seen anything like it. So we wanted to be correct with all our facts.
CNN's
So,
still
what I
more
was doing
dangerous.
was just asking, it would be great if
Even though we've been at war for
the
centuries,
media would be
really.
correct with their facts. That's all we ask for. So, and go ahead. So finish it up.
Oh, yes, just returning back to Russia, if there's anything that you.
That's a
need
good
to know
reporter.
about
She was
your
unfazed
displeasure with that.
by him
Well,
reacting that
look,
way.
I'm very unhappy with them. There's no reason for this. It's turned out to be tougher, but it's only tougher. And I will say the Ukrainians were brave, but we gave them the best equipment ever made. We gave them the anti-tank busters that knock out tanks. I mean, you just aim them in the direction of the tank, and the tank is gone. We gave them
Probably an
missiles,
oversimplification.
latest and the greatest. They were able to shoot down a lot of things. It
Any idiot
would've
could
normally
use them.
wiped
You
out.
just aim them at a
Yeah,
tank, and the tank
probably
doesn't
would
work
have been a
anymore.
very quick war. It would have been a war that lasted 3-4 days, but they had the benefit of unbelievable equipment. And Europe gave them to. We gave them far more because Biden shouldn't have done that. He should have equalized. We should have given him the same, or we should have given actually less than Europe. It affects Europe much more than us, but we're in there for over $300 billion. Europe's in there for over 100 billion, but still, Europe gave a lot. I will
he's
say this,
given
the
Europe more
Ukrainians,
credit now
well,
than he used to, if you
I think
recall.
it's unfair
Back
that
when
we
he was
go
running, he
along
used to
or
talk
not.
about how we
They
gave
were
so
very
much more
brave
than
because
Europe.
somebody had to
Now
operate
it's a little
that stuff,
closer.
and a lot of people I know wouldn't be operating it. They wouldn't have the courage to do it. So they fought very bravely. But we gave them the best equipment in the world. We make the best military equipment by far. There's nobody close. You look
Is
at
he
other
like
equipment
blaming
from
Ukraine
other
for
countries,
not
it's
being
not
able
even
to
close. That's
stand
why
up to
everybody
the
wants
Russian
buy our
army?
equipment, and that's why we're going to step up these contractors now that make it, and they're brilliant, but they make it too slowly. And we have to step them up, Pete, and let them make it at a much higher rate. Unfortunately, we have to do that. But if you look at our Patriots, if you look at our Tomahawks.
Luckily, the bill passed, so
if you look
billions
at
of
our,
dollars going
well,
to
what
the
we do
military
with tanks
and
is,
production.
You wouldn't want to be driving a tank. You would feel nice and secure, but they are javelins, they're called. And I gave them the javelins. Remember they said Trump gave the javelins and Obama gave them sheets, right? They called Obama at that time. Barack Hussein Obama, if you haven't heard, did a terrible job.
If you
But that
haven't
was a war
heard.
that was a war that should have
Why does he always
happened.
say his middle
And
name?
A lot of people are dying.
It's
And
funny
it
that he
should
doesn't
end
have
in
he doesn't
that.
have like a
We
Sleepy
get-
Obama or like a
we get
nickname.
lot
He just
of
uses his
bullshit
full
thrown
name.
at us by Putin, if you want to know the truth. He's very nice all the time, but it turns out to be meaningless.
Putin's super nice all the time, guys. I don't know if you've ever met him, but really nice
I'm looking
guy.
at it, yeah, no, I'm looking. The Senate is passing and passed very tough sanctions. But yeah, I'm looking at it. It's an optional bill. It's totally at my option. They passed it totally at my option, and to terminate totally at my option. And I'm looking at it very strongly.
Yesterday, you said that was the Council of Economic Advisors released a new report saying that imported goods have actually decreased in price from December.
I know, it's
Through March. Well, my question is,
With the tariffs.
Well, the Fed chairman keeps saying that tariffs are going to cause price increases.
Are we
the prices just not
Chairman
passed
of the
through?
Fed?
Yes, exactly.
Well,
Are the
you
prices-
do a better job than him.
Thank you. Are the prices just
This
not
guy
passed
hates
through yet?
Jerome Powell.
No, I think what's happening is everything's evening out. You know, when we charge, see what people don't understand, the other countries have been charged, almost every country charges us tariffs. We had deficits with everybody for years, for decades. And we were like this big monolith that made bad deals with everybody. We rebuilt South Korea and we stayed there. It's okay, we rebuilt it and we stayed there. And they pay us very little for the military. I got them to pay billions of dollars, and Biden then canceled it when he came in. I sent to South Korea as an example. We give you free military, essentially, very little. And I think you should pay us $10 billion a year. And they went crazy. But they agreed to 3. So I got 3 with a phone call. And I was satisfied. I said, but next year we have to talk. And then we had a rigged election, and we never got to talk. And you know what Biden did? They probably went to him and they said, listen, Trump treated us terribly and we shouldn't be paying anything, and he cut it down to nothing. So that's what happens. It's ridiculous. That's the other thing. We're talking to countries about contributing to the military, not only just paying more in NATO, but contributing. We have 45,000 soldiers in South Korea. We have 45,000 soldiers in Germany, 52,000 actually. And
We have how many in
that's
South
a huge
Korea?
economic development for them. That's tremendous amount. That's like having a city. It's tremendous money for them, and it's a tremendous loss for us. So we're talking in a very nice
Is it
way.
a-
We're talking to them.
Is it a
about
loss if
It's
we
very
have
unfair. We supply
people
the
there?
militaries to many very successful countries. I mean, South Korea
Sounds like
is
we're
making a lot of
paying
money.
to be there,
And
which
they're
makes
very good. They're very
sense.
good, but they should be paying for their own military.
President Trump, can I ask you a question about Jerome Powell as well, and then the question to the Attorney General? Jerome Powell, and then I have a question for the Attorney General. Jerome Powell, who you've been pressuring to lower interest rates, he's facing accusations of lying to Congress, which is a potential crime about the
Well, then he
opulence.
should resign immediately. We should get somebody in there that's going to lower interest rates.
Do you want congressional
Why don't you
Republicans
call
to-
for his resignation?
Do you want congressional Republicans to investigate?
It's
pursue,
okay with
punish?
me. I think he's terrible. I think, look, we're paying, I call him too late. T-O-O, too late, like Too Tall Jones for the Dallas Cowboys, right? Too late.
not to be
Uh,
confused with the
he's
number
always
too
late.
late.
But he wasn't late with Biden before the election. He was cutting him like crazy. It didn't help too much, did it? But he was cutting them like crazy before the election.
That's
would
true. He
come
did
out.
try to cut right
And
before
he
the
was trying to
election.
get them in, I guess. I don't know. He was recommended.
He's
by
not
somebody
wrong.
who worked
That
for
did
him.
happen. It's because inflation was going
I like
down.
you better.
It's because we had controlled inflation, and the only reason they haven't cut more, as they've said, now is because of Trump's tariffs. They're not sure how they're going to impact the market, and so they haven't cut anymore.
The American or Foreign Intelligence Agency, the former Labor Secretary who was Miami U.S. Attorney Alex Costa, he allegedly said that he did work for an intelligence agency. So could you resolve whether or not he did, and also could you say why there was a minute missing from the jailhouse tape on the minute?
Oh, he's asking about the minute missing from the Epstein video.
Are you still talking about Jeffrey Epstein? This guy's been talked about for years. You're asking, we have Texas, we have this, we have all of the things. And are people still talking about this guy?
Are
This
people
creep?
still talking about
That
it?
is unbelievable. Do you want to waste
Are
the
people still
time
talking
and
about Jeffrey
do like
Epstein?
that?
I don't mind answering.
Let's talk
I mean,
more
I can't
about
believe you're asking me a question
the
about Epstein at a time
Hunter
like this,
Biden laptop.
having some of the greatest success and
Oh well,
also
Epstein.
tragedy
Who wants to talk
with
about
what
that?
happened in Texas. It just seems like a desecration. But you go ahead.
Sure. First, to back up on that, in February, I did an interview on Fox, and it's been getting a lot of attention because I said
That it was on
I
her
was
desk.
asked a
The list was
question
on her
about the
desk.
client list, and my response was, it's sitting on my desk to be reviewed, meaning the file along with the JFK, MLK files as
That
well.
clarification
That's what
was
I meant by
necessary.
that. Also, to the tens of thousands of video, they turned out to be child porn downloaded by that disgusting Jeffrey Epstein. Child porn is what they were. Never going to be released, never going to see the light of day. To him being an agent,
No one
I have
wants
no
the
knowledge
porn to
about
be
that.
released.
We can get back to you on
That's not what
that.
people are
And
asking
the minute
for.
missing from the video, we released the video showing definitively the video was not conclusive, but the evidence prior to it was showing he committed suicide. And what was on that, there was a minute that was off the counter. And what we learned from Bureau of Prisons was every night, they redo that video. It's old, from like 1999. So every night the video is reset, and every night should have the same minute missing. So we're looking for that video to release that as well, showing that a minute is missing every night. And that's it on Epstein.
There you have it. Who wants to talk about Epstein anymore anyway? We'd much rather talk about all the other old shit he keeps bringing up.
It's always been August 1st. That's what I'm paying. A statement was put
It
out
hasn't
today.
always been August
Put
1st. It
out
was June
Just
9th.
to make it clear, it wasn't a change. It was August 1st. We don't change very much. Every time we put out a statement, they say he made a change. I didn't make a change. Clarification, maybe. No, August 1st we pay.
What?
And everybody pays. Everybody has to pay.
There
And
was
the
never
incentive
any
is that
mention
they
of
have the
August
right to
1st
deal in the United
until
States.
earlier
If they
this
don't want
week.
to, they
Just-
don't have to pay, and they don't have to deal. They're
I'm not calling
But if
Trump
they
a
want
liar.
to,
I'm just
buy
saying
and make a lot of money and sell.
that it was
in the
set for
United
June 9th,
States,
and
they have
then
to do that. You know, if you
earlier
go
this
back and
week
look
he
at,
pushed it to
some of
August
the
1st.
Good presidents. Our country was the wealthiest, proportionately the wealthiest, from 1870 to 1913.
1870. Who
Those are
wants to
all
talk
power.
about that anymore? We
didn't
got
have income
Texas.
tax.
We got
That
other
came
things
in-
going on.
That came in 1913. We had tariffs, and we had so much money we didn't know what to do with it. We had, we had a couple of presidents that were very, very strong. McKinley, I guess.
It's
more
like
than
the
anybody,
world
but he was
changed.
the tariff king, but he was very, very strong. It was sort of sad. He made a fortune for this country, became very rich, and then Teddy Roosevelt went out and vice president, and he spent
The
money.
last
And they
president
said Roosevelt was a great president.
who
And let's say
who
he
actually
was a great
did well on
president,
our
but the money
spending,
was
by the
paid
way,
by
was Bill
McKinley with
Clinton.
Tariffs
Not
are charged
since-
by other countries at levels that are ridiculous. And I call those other countries to say, and every one of them is willing to give us everything now, by the way, just so you know. Sir, we'll charge you no tariffs, nothing. We'll give you everything. We'll give you access to our markets. We'll give you everything.
Someone
Is that
just
a
said, "I
good
can't believe you're so
statement?
biased,"
Howard
but they
would
must
say
be
it's a
talking
good
about
statement.
somebody else because I
It's
have
like,
zero
they just
bias
don't-
against Trump.
Because they're very spoiled, because for years they ripped us off and we didn't have a president that understood it, or Secretary of Treasury or Secretary.
To be clear, when
a lot of different secretaries.
when I
are
tell you
involved,
that
but certainly Commerce Secretary.
the
was,
tariffs were
you know,
set to
doing
take
their job.
effect
I don't know
June
about
9th,
it's just small business.
and then he
We'll
pushed
keep
them
it
to
that way.
August 1st, even though he just said
Small
they were
business is
always set
bigger
for
than
August
almost all
1st.
big businesses.
That's not a bias.
But no,
That's just
they
what
are,
happened.
Very respectful of our country, but the incentive is that they have the right to do business with us. Without that, they don't have the right to do business, and that would be okay too.
And whether they were at deals,
Yeah, go ahead.
here in the next
Look at the
24
deficit
hours,
under Bill
here,
Clinton.
3
Some
years.
people are saying
Yeah,
that
we
Bill
have a lot
Clinton
of them going out,
was
but
not
the
as
deals
good.
are mostly
Just look it
mightier
up.
than them.
look up
We're picking
how
a
our
number that's
deficit
low
has worked, Bill
don't
Clinton
wanna
and
hurt
beyond.
them, and fair. We're picking a number that's lower than, in most cases, lower than what they charged us. But it's amazing.
Yeah,
when
under
you
Bill Clinton, we had a
pay all this
surplus.
money for years,
And that was the last
you
time
get
that
one
happened.
president that's a little bit different and a little tougher on this subject, and they're willing to drop everything they've been charging us for years and years.
Someone
And then
says
we
my
have countries
mannerisms suck
who
towards
have
Trump.
No, you don't have to pay.
You
any
are reading
tariff
it.
to
You're
come in and do business.
you're misjudging the
Giving us
mannerisms.
total access to their countries. They gave us no access to the country. They said, well, you cannot go into our country. Okay, good. Now it's, we will give you total access and you don't have to pay any tariffs. But please don't charge us tariffs. And we don't like that deal. So the letters I send out are, we have made some deals. We can make a lot more deals. It's just too time consuming. It just makes it more complicated. And we can do things over the years too. You know, we're not hard line. But it's about time the United States of America started collecting money from countries that were ripping us
Yeah,
off.
not one-sided.
Ripping us off and laughing behind our back at how stupid we were. Okay? Thank you.
Mr. President,
Thank you.
And the yellow?
on the tariff issue, so you've talked about India coming, but then a couple days ago you issued.
People calling me one-sided, I don't know what to tell you. If this were Biden saying all these things, I'd be reacting exactly the same way. If it were Obama, if it were Bill Clinton himself, I'd be saying exactly the same things.
BRICS was set up to degenerate our dollar and take our dollar as the standard, take it off as the standard.
I don't think that was the main purpose of BRICS, but it's certainly a lot of those countries do want the U.S. dollar to not be the world reserve currency.
Well, if they're a member of BRICS, they're gonna have to pay 10% tariff, just for that one thing, and they won't be a member long. I thought BRICS was, you know, I said this about a year ago, and it largely broke up. But, you know, there are a
That's
couple
true.
that
BRICS is
hang
not
around,
having
but I thought it
an easy
largely
time
broke
right
up.
now.
BRICS is not, in my opinion, not a serious threat. But what they're trying to do is destroy the dollar so that another country can take over
That's
and be the
accurate.
standard. And we're not gonna lose the standard at any time. If you have a smart president, you will never lose the standard. If you have a stupid president like the last one, you would lose the standard. You wouldn't have the dollar as you. And if we lost the world standard dollar, that would be like
I'm not
losing
saying
a war,
Biden wasn't
a major
stupid,
world war.
because
we would not be the same country.
I don't know if you saw him at the end,
We're not gonna
but
let that happen.
he wasn't
The
sharp.
dollar. You ever hear the expression? Dollar
But to
is
keep bringing
king?
it up is so
The dollar is
unnecessary.
king. We're gonna keep it that way, okay? And I'm just saying, if people want to challenge it, they can, but they're gonna have to pay a big price. And I don't think any of them are willing to pay that price.
Thank you, Mr. President. Are you optimistic about reaching the tariff deal with the European Union soon?
Well, the European Union has been speaking to us, Ursula and the whole group, and they've been very nice. They treated us very badly until recently. Now they're treating us very nicely. It's like a different world, actually. They've treated us very badly. They were among the toughest to deal with. Actually, in many respects, they were much worse than China. Look at what they do to our companies. They sue Apple, they sue Google. 17 billion they got from Apple.
They have been doing that, although I don't
They
think
didn't
it's
have
like
case.
just like a anti-American
You know,
thing.
Judges
You
that are
know,
European Union judges.
I think Apple has a
They
monopoly
They
in
take so
Europe,
much money away from our
and they
country in terms
don't want
of
that to be the
in terms
case.
of other things that they do. They're very tough, but now they're being very nice to us, and we'll see what happens. We're probably 2 days off from sending them a letter. We are talking to them. I just want you to know, a letter means a deal. You know, a lot of people said, we got 200 countries. We can't meet with 200 countries. We have a few trusted people that know what they're doing, that are doing a good job, but you can't do it. You have to do it in a more general way, but it's a very good way. It's a better way. It's a more powerful way. And we sent him a letter. You read the letter. I think it was well crafted. And mostly it's just a little number in there. You'll pay 25%, 35%. We have some at 67.
Not such a little number.
Those are ones
To
with massive,
30%.
Massive trade deficits.
Some of them are
because they've
40%.
treated us very badly. But I would
Not
say
just
in
a little
every
number,
case,
really.
I'm treating them better than they treated us over the years. Don't you agree with that? I could have done much. I could have been much harsher. I don't want to do that. We want to have relationships.
I don't know how I feel
but-
about his use of the
but
word
in every
treatment
case,
here, right? Because
they
these are
treated us
just
far
deals,
worse
and even
than
if we
they
made a
treated
bad
them. Very
deal,
good. I could go
that
higher
doesn't mean that
with
they
the tariffs, but I don't
treated
wanna-
us poorly.
That's why when you just read it, you come up with the number. It's so incredible.
Sort of
The
a
prices
failure
are
on
actually
our
going
part,
down. Just so
if
you know,
that's
when I
the
got in,
case.
everyone said, "Oh, eggs are going through the roof." That was the first. I was in for
Eggs
about
were
4 days
going
and they
through the
started
roof
screaming
when
at me
people
about
said
eggs.
that.
I
No
said,
one
"That's
is bringing
Biden's
it up
fault."
anymore
I didn't
except
know
for
about
him.
eggs. But eggs went up about 5 times. You did a fantastic job, and we ended up shortly getting. In fact, for Easter, they said go out and buy plastic eggs. You can't use real.
And
eggs.
I said no, but
Well,
that
we
has
bought
nothing to do with the
200,000 eggs
price.
for the White House.
Just because he
For the Easter
demanded
egg hunt.
eggs, real
We had it at
eggs
the
be
White House,
used,
and there were eggs.
doesn't
We got
mean
the
that
price down, and now
they
the
were
price is
reasonably
lower
priced.
than it was before. We did a good job with eggs, but we did a good job with groceries. Our prices are down in this country. A big part of it's oil. The oil. You had a couple of places last week. You had $1.99.
Who wants to talk about the
Oh,
Epstein list
yes,
when
I-
eggs prices are
Nobody
down?
thought they'd see that. I want to get it lower if I can, but we've done a good job. You've done a very good job. Do you want to say a couple of words about that, you and Chris, about what's happening with energy?
Well, absolutely, but I would say on the pricing side, President Trump, the fact that you've endorsed and supported a policy of energy dominance, that sends a signal to the market that we're going to have more supply. You talked during the campaign about inflation being a country buster. You've broken in the back of inflation. In 6 months, among all the other things you've accomplished.
We have no inflation.
And we've got,
We don't have no
These are
inflation.
the lowest gas prices.
We have lower
in
inflation.
4 years.
Which is good.
And again, for Americans.
To his credit,
this is like
we have
hundreds of
lower
billions of
inflation than
dollars
we did last year.
That stay in their pockets because we
We
lower
do
the
not
price
have
of
no
gas at the
inflation.
pump, and when we lower the
That's
price of energy,
incorrect.
it lowers the price of food, it lowers the price of the clothes you wear.
It's the biggest
food
thing.
It's the biggest thing.
It's like a big tax cut. When you get energy down, every 50 cents is like a massive tax cut, and we've gotten it down much below that. You know, we had great energy, great low prices, everything else. When the election turned over, I'm trying to be nice about it. It turned over, shockingly, but nevertheless it happened. Energy started going up, and it went up really bad, and then he went back to the Trump policy. The problem was they didn't know how to do that, and he lost it. He lost that sucker. That big sucker was out of control, and his energy prices went way up, and that's what caused it. But it was also stupid spending. They spent money like, they used to use the term drunken sailors, but I won't use that term. Although it is very descriptive, I won't use that term. I refuse to use it. But they spent money. At
He
levels that
refuses to
nobody
use
had
that
ever seen
one?
before. And trillions and trillions of dollars wasted on the Green New scam, greatest scam in the history of our country, other than maybe Russia, that might have been.
But who wants to
the
talk
Green
about
New
the
scam
Epstein
was
list?
the single greatest scam in the history of our country.
When we can talk
And
about the Green New
continues to
Deal.
be, but it's weakened badly. It's hobbling along because people are finally getting it. But they spent trillions of dollars on the Green New scam, getting nothing for it. Devised by a couple of young people that weren't even good college students, you know?
We're
even
not
good students. Check out
doing
their
the Green New
marks.
Deal anymore.
It's
It's over.
No, not for CNN.
The last,
Not for
the
CNN.
last-
Go ahead.
The last jobs,
Send more
in the last
jobs
jobs
to
report,
Ukraine.
Mr. President, in the last jobs report, the manufacturing jobs actually lost 7,000 jobs. When will the investments that you've been talking about have an effect?
Well,
on
they're
the-
building the plants now. About 7 have started. We're gonna have hundreds started within a short period of time. Lee Zeldin, who may be the most important man in this room, I'm sorry, but he's the one that gets the permits, whereas he's the one that has to get the permits for the plants and the factories, and permits that used to take 5 years, he's getting in record-setting times. AI, we're leading China a lot in AI, and
Because you got rid of all the
with this,
watchdogs
you
that
know,
make sure those
I'm
things happen
allowing the plants
appropriately, to
to
be
build their own
clear.
electric. I'm
Which is
allowing
fine.
them to
I mean,
become a
maybe that's what we
electric
needed.
Utility, so they can produce their own electricity, because we need double the to be successful with AI, which is the biggest thing now. We need double the electricity that we have, which
True.
is hard to believe. We need even more than that. And they're building plants with their own electricity substations. They don't have to use the grid. And anything they build extra,
that's
they're
good.
putting
That's
into
great.
the grid. So we're supplying the grid with brand new electric sources. And you know, it's funny, when they came to see me, they never even asked for that. I told them about it. The reason they didn't, they thought that was an impossibility. You're not allowed to build your own electric. These are massive investments that are being made in building
They
electricity
weren't
for their
allowed,
plants.
and
they're
now
gonna
they
have,
are.
I think, Doug, a lot of electricity left over, and that electricity is gonna be passed into the grid and give us no more, you know, like you look at California, they have blackouts and brownouts every week. They're totally out of control. They have a really incompetent
What?
governor. Where's Chris? Is he here?
What?
You want to speak to this?
California is not having blackouts and brownouts every week.
The one big beautiful bill, Mr.
I don't even know what he's
Leadership
referring to.
is
That's
the ending
simply
of these
not
subsidies,
happening.
as you call them, the Green New Scam. That saves our country $500 billion over the next 10 years. But American taxpayers were paying twice. They're paying that money, $500 billion in the subsidies, and they were paying more expensive electricity price. If you subsidize something, you should at least lower the cost of it. But in this case, we were subsidizing something and paying more for it. So the one big beautiful bill had two huge things: ending wasteful spending. Wind, solar, and batteries combined are 3% of U.S. total primary energy. 3% for $1 trillion, another $500 billion coming. It's just not a good investment, hurting our businesses, hurting our consumers. And the one big beautiful bill also unshackled oil, gas, and coal development in the United States, onshore and offshore. Secretary Burgum has been working tirelessly.
I think
on
it's
how
worth
by
mentioning,
getting the
that
government out of the
those
way,
things hadn't been
private businesses will
eliminated
develop more resources in the United
because
States,
we didn't
lowering
want
costs
to
for
make
American
energy,
consumers
you know?
and making much
Those things were
better,
eliminated because they are bad for the
United States to
environment.
help our allies abroad and reduce the
Areas
power of our
around
adversaries
coal
abroad. So
plants
just a huge win in the energy front all around. And I thank
Are
you for your
not
leadership.
that's
We're
great.
setting-
You
we're
can't
setting
farm on
records
them. You
now
can't, you
on
know.
energy,
It
and
really
there'll be
hurts the
nothing
land
compared
around
to what they'll be in about
them.
a year from now. But we're setting records.
It wasn't just some evil
Wind is a very expensive form of energy.
scheme
It's very bad for your beautiful
to get rid of it.
surroundings, the plains and
But,
valleys.
you know,
the birds
we do have to
dying
power
all over the
AI,
place.
so
The
maybe
whole thing
that's
is
the
a
answer.
Disaster. They're almost exclusively made in China. Not that I have anything against China, because I don't have a great relationship with President Xi, but I asked him, how many wind farms do you have? He makes them, but they don't have a lot of wind farms, I'll tell you, very, very few. And wind is tremendously expensive and is very ugly. And if you own a house that's inside of a windmill, your house is worth less than half.
Have you ever seen the
And
land
people-
outside of a
and
nuclear
voices.
plant?
And, interestingly,
not pretty.
in New England, you probably read, where for 50 years they had 2 wells washed up.
And just in case anybody's getting
And last
confused,
summer,
these
they had
comments are not
14
anti-Trump
washed up.
comments.
Now,
It's just
I'm
the
not
way
saying
it
it's the
is. If
wind
you
farm
think
that was
that
built,
windmills
maybe it
are
is, right?
unsightly,
Probably is.
but a nuclear
It's,
power plant
tremendously
is
expensive.
not,
And it can
well,
only be
that's a
done with
weird.
subsidy.
I
know
would
a man
say
that's
that
in business,
you would probably
and
be in the
one of
minority.
biggest in the world actually runs a company that builds these stupid windmills.
And it's
he said,
fine.
"I hate
Nuclear
the
energy
business
better
because
than
it's the only
wind power
energy
energy,
you need
maybe.
subsidy."
That's
said,
if
"Energy
you
should
believe
be
if that's
subsidy.
if
You
that's
should
the way it
make
is,
money
then
with
that's the way it is.
So
But to say
the other one
one
the
is
solar, those big
ugly
solar fields.
and the other
They're
one
taking
isn't,
our
well, that
farmland.
doesn't make a
Our
lot of
farmers
sense.
are like mortified by it. They hate it. It's very, very inefficient. and
He could talk
very
about not
ugly.
wanting
Probably
to
better than
use
a
wind
windmill.
technology
Go around and
without
just
using the reason
things that are
of
3 miles
it's
long
ugly,
by 3
because
miles
that just
wide,
is
and you say, "What the
totally
hell is that?"
inconsequential.
And it's a lot of plastic from China.
Let's just say
It's
we
plastic,
have the
black
ugliest
plastic from China.
thing
we
imaginable,
wanna
but
be
it
smart.
generates
We're going
energy
with,
for millions of people. Like, who cares how ugly it is?
China right now is building 58 coal-fired plants, 58 big ones. They have 62 on the books.
Someone says nuclear plants are in the middle of nowhere. Are wind turbines in the middle of cities that I'm unaware
Go
of?
out with coal now, clean, beautiful coal, and natural gas, and all of the other things that we have. But we don't want wind, and we don't want solar, because they're a blight on our country. They hurt our country very
A
badly,
blight?
and smart countries don't.
Again,
do it.
even if you think that
Solar
they
sounds
are
good, I will
less
say. I
useful
like, on occasion, you see
sources
a
of
leaf
energy,
which is made out of solar,
to call it a blight
but it's a
seems
smaller use.
extreme.
We need the kind of thing
Is
that's
all.
going to fire up our plants, and it's not going to be wind. You know, that's very intermittent.
That's
as
fine. You don't want
probably
to
know.
use wind and
But
solar?
we,
I'm
they
okay
have-
with that.
They've spent a fortune.
Calling
They've
it a
spent
blight
trillions
upon the
of dollars
nation
on this
is
stuff. And I'll just give you one other story. A friend of mine,
false.
he's
I mean,
very
frankly.
successful guy. He went back to see his mother in Minnesota. Hadn't seen her in a long time, and he wasn't back for 10 years, which isn't a nice story. I mean, you don't see your mother for 10 years.
See,
You
someone
get some
says that their
difficulties,
rural
which I know
area
that he
is
does have
being
some
ruined
difficulties.
by solar
He's very
farms.
successful, but probably
Let me
not the
ask you,
nicest person.
if they had put a
He was
nuclear
actually
power
older
plant
than
there
10
instead
years,
of a
but he
solar
went back and
farm,
he told me he
do
wanted to
you
go
think
look
that
at
that
the
would be
valley.
better
There's a
or
valley
worse?
in Minnesota that he thought was so beautiful. And I hadn't seen it in a long time. He's driving along the road. He said, "Oh my!" I'll use the word
If they
gosh.
took away
Oh my
that
gosh.
solar farm and
Said,
replaced it with a nuclear
"Oh,
power plant,
Oh,
better
this
or
thing looked
worse?
Like a junkyard. You had
Let me know.
159 windmills. They were all over the place. Some were old.
This
some
guy's
were
still
new.
going on about windmills.
Different companies,
Who wants to
different
talk
shapes,
about the
different
Epstein
sizes,
list
different colors.
when
Many
we've
of
got
them were
windmills out there?
Terminated, meaning closed. You can't take them down because the environmentalists don't let you bury the blades because they're made out of a fiber they say is bad for the earth. So they want you to put them up, but they don't let you take them down. But many of them were turned off. He said it looked like a junkyard. Go to Palm Springs, California, and take a look at that pile of junk. And you go into a wealthy neighborhood.
Someone
before you
says the
get there, you
nuclear
have to
power
run
plant
through
would generate more
hundreds
jobs
of
than a
windmills
solar
that are-
farm.
Most of them are
And
turned
that
off,
might
they're
be,
rotting, they're
but that
rusting,
has
they're
nothing to
30
do
years
with the
old,
question that
20
I
years
asked.
old.
Because I was
And,
responding
they
to
have a
someone
very short life.
saying
You know, those
that
windmills have a very
solar
short life,
farms were
especially the
ruining
ones that are
their
in the nice
rural
salty
area.
Atlantic
And
Ocean
I want to know
and
how
Pacific
a
Ocean
solar
where the salt
farm
just gets under
compares
that
to a
steel
nuclear
and
power
decimates
plant
it.
in the same
Now,
area.
it's a horrible, horrible thing for our country.
It's not like
And
we get
I
rid of all
see,
the solar
it would be nice
farms
to
and
say
then the
wind,
nuclear
because
power
it
plants are
sounds so
somewhere
good,
else.
doesn't
They
it?
go where
Wind,
those other things
wind.
would have been.
But it's not. It's these ugly machines, and they're all made. You got to see. Some are a little taller, a little shorter. They're made by different companies. They have different stocks. They have different blades. They have different everything. It is so horrible. And if you look at smart countries, they don't use it. Smart countries don't use it. And we're now a smart country. We're a brilliant country. We're not smart. We're brilliant now. We're going to be a brilliant country. We have to be because we have to catch up for some really stupid people that did a bad job. Yes, Brian?
Yes, Mr. President, I've got a quick comments and feedback as a native Texan, someone that I grew up bringing my kids to a camp very near the affected camp now. Thank you on behalf of Texas. I've gotten hundreds of messages that want to thank. If you're in the cabinet room, you can tell the president and his team on behalf of Texans, thank you so much for the quick response and the loving and the hugs.
What smart countries is he referring to? Oh, that's not what I
I
want.
got a Palestinian senator. His name is Schumer. He's a great Palestinian. No, he's a Palestinian. He's become a Palestinian. He's abandoned the Jews.
These are the countries
But
that
I
use.
saw
Germany
him
uses
say,
27% wind
it's Trump's fault.
technology.
Yeah, that's
Wind
right.
power.
It's Trump's fault.
China's
He was
11%.
actually- You ever see John Lovett's The Liar?
Spain 24%,
Yeah,
UK
I went
28 to
Harvard,
30%.
that's right. This
Which
was
of these companies are which of these countries are not smart?
It's Trump's fault. That's right. It's Trump. I actually saw that stupid guy try and blame it on me, and I said, "Man, that's a tough one to take." But his career is limited because I hear AOC is going to beat him, and she's no bargain either. By the way, go ahead.
Well, I'm just saying that's an example of an America First team effort to get this country back. So that's what America First looks like for the viewers watching us at home. My two questions. Looks like we have a rogue judge, an Obama-backed rogue judge.
If you
that
go
has attempted to block
on
the funding
YouTube, you can actually
to
see what I'm
Planned
looking at.
Parenthood, which the big, beautiful bill
You'll have to
cuts
rewind
off
now,
the funding
but
to
it's
Planned
there.
Parenthood. Any plans to challenge that?
Good.
Absolutely, yes, we're on it.
I figured
We're on it, and I texted, I believe, I talked to yesterday Secretary Lutnick and Secretary Besson. I reached out to you to let you know that we were on it in the big beautiful bill.
Wonderful. And then my
I
second.
let her handle that question. Did you notice? I said, "Go ahead, handle that."
It's all sent to her. Then my second question.
We
to
noticed.
Secretary Rollins, you did an amazing press conference today in front of the Department of Agriculture. You talked about the Farm Act and the need to get China out of our country, owning farmland, for the viewers at home that might have missed that, can you recap what that means to national security to make sure we can grow our own food?
Well, thank you, Brian. Sir, if you don't mind. Yes, this morning Secretary Hegseth, Secretary Nome, and Attorney General Bondi and I had a press conference at the USDA. I just happened to have a chart in case it came up, but obviously the Chinese owning of farmland in our country is a massive national security issue. And for the media, you can see the yellow is where all of the farms have been purchased over the last number of years. And the red is around all of the military bases where that farmland has been purchased. So this is a massive national security issue. The press conference this morning included 3 of our greatest governors as well. Sarah Sanders from Arkansas.
That sounds like
Tim
an
Dillon
issue.
from Nebraska, and Bill Lee
That
from
doesn't
Tennessee.
sound good.
The states have begun taking a leadership role to ban the purchasing of China farmland. Obviously, Congress needs to step up and catch up, and we're going to be working alongside of them as well. We had some of our members, great members of Congress there, but it is time. And I think that this morning was symbolic of many things. The first of this administration working every day to effectuate President Trump's leadership and unequivocal support of America first. But second, just how close we are as a cabinet. I don't know in any other administration that you'd have 4 cabinet members at the USDA on a Tuesday morning when it's about 110 degrees outside with the sun beating down on us talking about Sir Your Vision. So I think it was a great day. It was just the start. There's an executive order coming and some other things coming behind that.
I'm pretty sure that
America's farms
a lot of
isn't just
cabinet
about
members
protecting our
have worked on
farmers,
hot
it's
days
also
in the
about
past.
national
I don't,
security.
I
So that's what we
guess,
discussed this
I can't say for
I do
sure.
want to say that I think
But it
we
seems
have
weird to
had
say-
a really good relationship with China lately, and we're getting along with them very well. And they've been,
I thought he just said that they weren't
Very
doing,
fair on our
he wasn't
trade
sure
deal.
about President Xi.
and I hope we're going to have a great relationship. It's a big, strong, powerful country. We're more powerful than they are. We have much better military equipment than they do.
Of course.
But we are getting along with them very well. I'm getting along with President
Literally
Xi
not what
very
he
well.
said
We
5
speak
minutes
often.
ago if you were watching with me.
And
But
with all of that
okay,
being said,
great.
and I understand what you're saying, but I think we're getting along with China very well.
Mr. President, you have sent more weapons to Ukraine, as you said last night. Last week, the Pentagon paused some shipments of weapons to Ukraine. Did you approve of that pause?
We want to put defensive weapons because Putin is not, he's not treating human beings right. He's killing too many people. So we're sending some defensive weapons to Ukraine, and I've approved that.
So who ordered the pause last week?
I don't know. Why don't you tell me?
I think that's a question.
Go ahead. Yeah.
wait. They paused the weapons. What do you mean you tell me?
Undocumented
She's
farmers,
asking if you approved that.
Amnesty of working on farms. You had said maybe that the ISA folks won't. go
I
after
guess we're
those
not
folks.
getting an answer on that one.
So which
No,
is
no,
it?
there's no amnesty. What we're doing is we're getting rid of criminals, but we are doing a work program. Do you want to explain that, please?
Yeah, this morning we talked about, of course, this was a top of mind question. This morning we talked about protecting the farmers and the farmland, but obviously this president's vision of no amnesty, mass deportation continues, but in a strategic way, and then ensuring that our farmers have the labor that they need. Secretary Chavez-DeRimmer has been a leader on this. Obviously, this comes out of the Labor Department, but moving toward automation, ensuring that our farmers have that workforce, and moving toward an American workforce. So all of the
We've got to
above.
give the farmers the people they need, but we're not talking amnesty. Laura, do you want to say something about
Yeah,
that?
thank you, Mr. President. On this, thank you, Secretary Rollins, how important this is never to displace the American worker. What the Department of Labor is doing is focusing on what the law entails now, being more modernized, more streamlining, to work through the H programs. We're gonna have a concierge
Right.
approach to that, where we have, developed a new office to answer the need of our farmers and ranchers and producers, and not to displace the American worker and fall within the law now, and that does not include an amnesty program at all. And we've seen that working, and we'll continue to have that roll out. On the other topics that we've somewhat talked about, the jobs numbers, Mr. President.
Okay, there's no amnesty plan, but they did say that, like, farm workers were not, we're gonna have amnesty, essentially.
We know it's gonna take some time, but through that deregulation process that Lee and I are working on as well, the Department of Labor has rolled out 63 new deregulations that we're gonna be moving through. In the first Trump administration, it was successful with over 30. We've just rolled out 63 new ones in order to double down on those manufacturing companies to let them know that we have signaled through this process that we will assist them in getting the workforce that they need. It's an exciting time. That one big beautiful bill, that was the signal to my former colleagues in Congress to get this done. It's been an important time. I spent time on the ground visiting 7 states in 9 days prior to that bill being passed because it was the most pro-worker piece of legislation that we will ever see really in this country right now. No tax on tips, no tax on overtime, no tax on Social Security. That matters to the American worker because we don't want to take their money and give it back. We want them to keep more of their hard-earned dollars in their pockets currently, and that's what they're excited about. And as I move forward with these tariff talks, I heard a company, orthopedic company in Indiana, say to me, for the first time since you have taken office, Mr. President, their increase in their bottom line by 8% since these tariff talks have happened. Not one company has said the president is not doing a good job. These tariff talks are working. They're feeling it on the ground. The
No
media
tax on
has
tips is
told
great,
a
but
false story
what about
because what's happening on the ground is positive.
raising
and
minimum
that's
wage and
what's
lowering
changing
housing
jobs.
costs?
So I really, through the Department of Labor, to come in behind all the secretaries and build this workforce is going to be key to the American worker. So thank you for what everybody did this last week. The one big beautiful bill is a doubling down of this, and we're going to see these workers start to grow. And that apprenticeship program is going to be working.
That's
We'll
right.
have that
It's gonna
million
be-
apprentices across the country.
We, as you know, we're building plants all over the country now, which you weren't building any plants 4 years ago. You weren't building anything. But those plants,
Well,
when they open up, it's going to be. You'll see
weren't
numbers
building
like
any
you haven't
plants.
seen
Is that
ever.
true?
I don't think in history you'll never see numbers like what we're going to see in the very near future. Many of them are building the plants. Some are just starting right now. You know, it's a brand new administration. But, and they wouldn't be here except for 2 things. November 5th, the election, and the tariffs. And frankly, I guess the election was more important because of tariffs. I mean, another person wouldn't have done this. But they're coming in because of the tariffs. They have to, they're not gonna pay 25, 30, 40, 50%, 70 and 100%. And we'll be announcing something very soon on pharmaceuticals.
Okay, so during Biden's
They give
presidency,
people about a year and a half to come in. After that,
there
they're
were
gonna be
2
tariffed
plants
because
built
they have
in
to bring the
Georgia, a
pharmaceuticals
plant
into
built
the
in
country,
Michigan,
and other things into the
an
country.
advanced
They're gonna be
reactor.
tariffed at a very, very high rate, like 200%. We'll give them a certain period of time to get their act together. But they were all here, now they all left. They
no
went to
new
other
large
places
fossil fuel
because we
plants.
allowed-
That's got to be what he's referring to, right?
People that sat in this room allowed
He
it
did
to
build some
happen.
nuclear plants, though.
And I don't allow it to happen. The people in this room don't allow it to happen. So we're going to be announcing pharmaceuticals, chips, and various couple of other things, big ones. We did steel, as you know, they're 50%. We did aluminum, 50%. Lumber just came out.
Why don't you announce copper?
And we did cars. And now, today we're doing copper.
What would that tariff be on? This actual
I believe the tariff on copper, we're going to make it 50%.
50%.
Any breakthroughs
See, I'm
on
glad he
DACA?
didn't question because
Any
I sort of just thought, what would that be? That was a quick one. I didn't have much time, but he agreed with me. That's why he's ours.
Any breakthroughs on Gaza with the Prime Minister, and there's reports that you're meeting with,
Yeah, any questions about
Yeah, I
Netanyahu?
am. He's going to come over again tonight. We're talking about Gaza.
He's coming over again tonight.
It's he's done
Another
very
sleepover.
unfairly treated. I think what they've done to him in Israel is very unfair, having to do with this trial. I think, he's a wartime prime minister, had an unbelievable outcome, and I think he's been treated
An
very
unbelievable
unfairly. But he's coming
outcome,
over
for
like
sure.
We're talking about, I would say, almost exclusively Gaza. We got to get that solved. Gaza is a tragic. It's a tragedy. It's a tragedy.
It
And he
is
wants
a
to get it solved,
tragedy.
and I want to get it solved, and I think the other side wants to get it solved. Steve, could you talk on that, please?
It's a tragedy over in Gaza, guys. Why is it so tragic over there?
We had 4 issues, and now
Maybe
we're down to
Israel
1
can help.
after 2 days of proximity talks. So we are hopeful that by the end of this week, we will have an agreement that will bring us into a 60-day ceasefire. 10 live hostages will be released. 9 deceased will be released. We're meeting at the president's direction with all the hostage families to let them know. And we think that this will lead to a lasting peace in Gaza.
That would be great.
And you're doing a good job.
I don't
It's a
think
tough
it's the
one.
peace that the
It's a
Gazans
tough
want,
one. A lot
but
of hate. You know,
Peace is
it's
peace
about
if it can happen.
Long-term hate,
At this point,
but we think we're going to have it
I
solved.
think most
pretty
people would
soon.
take what they can
Hopefully
get.
with a real solution, a solution that's going to be holding up.
And can I follow up? This is, I think, the first cabinet meeting since Elon Musk has now been.
Oh, someone's asking about
He's
Elon.
now saying he's going to create a third political party. Are you worried about the impact that that could have?
No, I think it'll help us. It'll probably help. Third parties have always been good for me. I don't know about Republicans, but for me.
Are you second guessing any of the cuts that Doge made since you
No,
described it as
no.
off
Look,
the rails
look,
the
we,
other day?
we cut hundreds of billions of dollars with Doge. We could have done it differently. I would have done it differently a little bit, maybe. But,
It sounded like he
but,
said hundreds of billions, but
it
that's
was
not
something
accurate.
that
It was
we saved
maybe
a lot
hundreds of
money.
millions. Maybe.
You can always second guess. I guess some of the people in this room maybe would have done it slightly differently, and some would have done it exactly the way it was done. But it was dramatic and it was important, and we found a lot of things like billions of dollars given to people for environmental protection, where they had $100 in the account, like in Atlanta, Stacy. And then you had another one with 20 billion here, and 20 billion here, and 2 billion here, and 15 billion. And Lee, you might want to mention just a couple of those things. We really got because of Doge.
At the Trump EPA, the one big beautiful bill was filled with many big beautiful wins for the taxpayer. It delivered a sledgehammer to the Green New scam. Billions of dollars rescinded. It's a big deal for the American taxpayer who sees money go through pass-throughs that are filled with self-dealing and conflicts of interest. They see unqualified recipients. They see reduced agency oversight, and they want accountability with their tax dollars, and they got it. In the example of the Stacey Abrams connected NGO, they received $100 in 2023. They got $2 billion in 2024. They had to complete training on how to develop a budget that was put into their grant agreement. They, out of nowhere, started paying a CEO $800,000, a COO $450,000, 22 people making over 150 grand. Out of nowhere, this is tax dollars. So money go through pass-throughs, through other pass-throughs, through other pass-throughs, and we lose oversight over it. And you see that it's going to former Biden officials, it's going to former Obama officials, it's going to Democratic donors. And we're not here saying we want to take money from a left-wing NGO and give it to a right-wing NGO. We want to give it back to the taxpayer. This is about us being good stewards of American tax dollars without any apology or regret. That's
To
why
be
President
clear,
Trump was
the
elected
spending in the
November.
one big beautiful bill
Because there are a lot of
drastically
people who
outweighs
maybe
the
they haven't voted
savings
for
that we've
Republicans in a
made.
long
So
time.
that money
Maybe
is
they
not
didn't
going
vote
back
for
to the
President Trump the
taxpayer.
first
It
time
will
around
go
in
back.
2016, but
It
they're
will go
regretting that
to
vote.
whatever's in the big
From
beautiful bill.
2016,
It'll
they
go
were making it
towards
right in 2024.
military spending and that sort
So
of
the
thing.
one big beautiful bill gave us the tools to rescind billions of dollars more. We're seeing hundreds of thousands of dollars.
And you
of
know that
leasing
that's not a
per
bias.
electric vehicle.
Because we have,
As an
you and
example of
I,
this
we're
money
all
that was
together.
going
We
through.
haven't received
They
any
gave
of this
$50
money.
million to a group called Climate Justice
And we're
Alliance.
not going
they say
to.
that climate justice runs through a free Palestine. The Biden EPA gave $50 million to a group that says the climate justice runs through a free Palestine. We say that if you're going to spend $1 in the name of remediating an environmental issue, then spend the dollar on remediating an environmental issue. We say that we can protect the environment and grow the economy. We want to help grow more baseload power in this country. So why is it that it took this long for this team to get assembled, to be able to fix the mess that we inherited? But gosh, we love showing up at our jobs every single day, first thing in the morning, because all day long we get things done for the American taxpayer. And Congress did its part last week by passing the one big beautiful bill to deliver this accountability and to cut off the Green New scam. So maybe it's a bad day for Stacey Abrams. Maybe it's a bad day for all those well-connected Democrats getting paid off. But you know what? God bless America. Because at the end of the day, President Trump is here, J.D. Vance is here, and the greatest cabinet ever assembled to deliver that much needed and highly demanded accountability.
That was a very good answer. And that's from the heart. That's from the heart.
That was from the heart, for sure.
Go after Russia for using toxic chemicals.
Someone's saying they're so boastful. Yeah, is this the first time you're tuning in? They love congratulating themselves. The previous administration did too, to be clear.
chemical.
Biden administration wasn't that dissimilar. They just did fewer of these.
Want us, John, maybe to discuss it if you'd like, John?
Well, Mr. President, obviously, chemical weapons, if it's documented and its use, it's illegal. It's against all international laws of armed conflict and treaties. And obviously, I can't share in this room with this audience the intelligence that I can share with you privately, but obviously, you're not going to stand or allow for any violations of international law by anyone.
That's right. Thank you. Could I ask Sean to Department of Transportation, Sean Duffy, former great congressman, very popular, decided to go out and make a couple of bucks. He made a lot. And he got bored with that, though. He likes serving people better, the people. And could I ask you to just discuss a very important
Yeah, he
subject?
probably doesn't like making money anymore.
Modernization of our equipment at
Seems
airports
reasonable.
so that planes aren't crashing into each other and bad things don't happen. It should have been done many years ago. We were going to do it, and then the election precluded that, unfortunately, but we're doing it now. Could you tell them where we are?
Yeah, if I could start with Newark. You guys all covered what happened in Newark. We had outages for a couple 30-second outages a couple months ago. We have, in 2 months, Mr. President, it's historic speed, laid new fiber lines for communication and tested those in the next month. So those new lines for the Philly Tracon that controls the Newark airspace, they're up and running. Lightning fast speed. June was the most on-time June ever in the history of Newark for air travel. So that's going incredibly well. By the way, we shouldn't have dealt with that because Joe Biden and Pete Buttigieg had moved the center from New York to Philadelphia. They didn't test the lines. They didn't do the work, which is what brought us all these problems. But in the big beautiful bill, we got $12.5 billion. This is a historic investment in air traffic control. And so what the money is going to allow us to do is move from copper to fiber all over the country. So new copper lines. We think we can do that in 1.5 to 2 years. We have radar that dates back to the 1950s, some of it from the 60s and 70s. We get brand new radar across the country as well. We have some infrastructure money to build TRACONs and centers, the en route centers that control the traffic across the country. So this is a massive new start to rebuild air traffic control. And again, this is dilapidated. Americans think that their government takes care of them and makes the investments that are necessary to make the country work. And for 30, 40 years, the investments weren't made. And so under your leadership and direction, we are making those investments. And per your direction, right now we are interviewing what we could call a general contractor or an integrator. One company to manage. It's a massive project. The FAA is not qualified to manage this kind of a project. So we are now going through the process of finding who that one company will be to manage the whole project. We'll interview those companies together and make that selection. So we'll write one big beautiful check to one beautiful company that'll be responsible for this whole build. But
one big beautiful check is right.
One last point.
That's a little more
this
accurate.
is not enough money. We're going to need more. But this is a massive new start. The biggest investment. We'll need some more money on top of it, but a great start from the big.
He made it sound like Biden moving the air traffic control center from New Jersey to Philadelphia was bad. It was done for a reason, though. And yes, I'm not saying that it was good. Maybe ultimately it was bad. They obviously had a lot of hiccups during the move. However, the reason the move occurred was because they were chronically understaffed, operating at just 60% of certified control capacity. And Philadelphia was able to handle that traffic better. Now,
into steel.
Obviously, there are other problems that arose, but it wasn't just like,
hundreds of contractors,
that guy made it sound like he just made a mistake.
They spent billions of dollars.
It was done for a reason.
And they made the system worse because you can't hook.
Just like the next administration will make these things sound like a mistake, even though they were done with good reason.
In the end, it was just a complete disaster. We want to have one great company. Now, Raytheon's going to bid, IBM's going to bid. We have 5 or 6 bidders that really are good and do this stuff. And we want one, because I know about overruns, I look at the railroad out in California, headed up by one of the worst governors in our country, who I used to get along with actually, but You know, when you lose 25,000 houses and you would have had your cities burned down. If we didn't step in, Los Angeles would have been burned to the ground. But you look at that, and I said, I really know how to build. You gotta have one
maybe.
guy, one contractor, one
Who
grader,
knows? It's a
whether
total
IBM or
hypothetical, so
Raytheon is
we'll never
brilliant,
know.
But you have 4 or 5 that are really, really great, and they're all bidding against each other. But you don't want to have one doing the wire and one doing the digging and one doing the demolition and then they're all saying they all blame each other because they're saying they were late and therefore you have to pay me millions of dollars more money. I know the system so well, and we're going to have a great company do the whole thing. We're going to get a fantastic price. Maybe we'll get them. They're very big and very strong, and maybe we'll get them to make a contribution toward getting it done at the right price. But we're going to have a great system. When we finish, we will have the best system on earth, done by one of the 2 or 3 best companies. There are only a few companies can do this. This is not. But if you would have seen what this other group did, they were going crazy. They had, I heard 3,000 contractors, and then when it all came together, guess what? It didn't work. It's a disaster.
That is a disaster.
We're going to have in a pretty short period of time, it's going to take us about 2 years to build it, and we'll have a contract given out probably over the next couple of months. We have some great bidders, some great companies that want to do the job. You're going to have great air traffic control.
Can I just make one last point? Of this?
I hope so.
The last administration
Make it happen,
signed a
Captain.
contract with an American company to fix the copper to fiber, and that contract was a 15-year contract. The system is failing today, but that's how idiotic and incompetent the last administration was. And under your leadership, we're saying, listen, we don't have time. We don't have 15 years. We don't have 5 years. We have to do it right now. And so the president always talks about on time and on budget. We have embraced that. We are going to be on time and on budget. And by the way, you mentioned a train out in California. Stay tuned for probably give us 5 days and you'll have an answer on what's going to happen with the $4 billion that we potentially have invested on a train that's going to go nowhere. It's going to be $120 billion that'll never connect San Francisco to LA. Again, the last administration wasted so much money on projects that never work. If you're going to have high-speed rail, you're going to invest billions. We should actually have high-speed rail in America.
I mean, can't argue with that.
Political friends and allies.
It's a real shame that those projects never
Inside of
really
San Francisco,
finished.
Inside of Los Angeles.
I don't think they're
Should have
scheduled
never
to be
been built
finished
because airplanes do
that
it
soon,
better.
but they.
And you
I
can
mean,
drive it.
I
You
could
can drive
see
it. No problem with
see
that.
why you might think
The
that's a
roads
waste of
aren't
money.
even crowded. So they were going to do this. Somebody's idea. Somebody got paid off a lot of money, and they started it. It was going to cost a very small amount of money, and it ended up costing literally hundreds of times what the original. And now what they did is they said, well, going into the city is too big a deal, so we'll leave it 25 miles short of the city. So now they're leaving it. They're not going to finish it really. It's not the same project. So now they're leaving it outside of San Francisco and outside, short of each. They just want to get it done.
Well, they are doing construction on
I've
it
never
in
seen
Los
cost
Angeles,
overruns.
in the
If
city.
you have a cost overrun of 10%, you should be ashamed of yourself. 20%, you should not do any more jobs. This is a cost overrun of 2,000%, something like that. It's unlimited, and it's not finished. And maybe it will never get finished. And I told Sean, look at it from every standpoint, but we don't want to, we have federal money going into that, and it's like throwing it out the window. So whatever you can do to stop it.
$15 billion and not one track has been laid. $15 billion and we're 16 years into the project, not one track.
Mr. President,
On Mr. President,
on New York, you're the most prominent Republican in the country from the city. What do you want to
anywhere else?
There is a physically built section.
I don't want to be a wise guy, perhaps.
Hold on. He just said that not one track has been laid. That's not true. Right now it runs from Merced to Bakersfield. They have laid track.
vote for Eric Adams? Should they vote for Sliwa? Should they pick someone else?
Look, number one, you have a communist running, and you shouldn't vote for him. He's a disaster.
Yeah, they're going to combine it
He's
with
got the
existing
Democrat
commuter
nomination
lines.
Because that shows you where the Democrats
If you want to see what I'm
are.
looking at here.
He actually wants to take over the grocery stores of John Cassimatidis, who's a great guy, a rich guy, grocer, does a good job, wants to take over. He actually called me the other day. He's concerned his stores are going to be taken from him. And they won't be run like John runs them, believe me, he runs a good operation, but he actually said he wants to run his own grocery stores.
Completion currently projected for
man
2040s.
Who's not very capable, in my opinion, other than he's got a good lot of bullshit, and he's convinced them to go with him. Now, as you know, Cuomo, who does have capability, is running, but he got knocked out, and now they're running.
$13 billion spent so far.
You have Eric Adams, the current mayor. You have Cuomo, and you have Curtis Lewa. And Curtis runs every 4 years. He seems to be a fixture on the running scale. But you know, it's. I'm not getting involved. But I can tell you this. I used to say we will not ever be a socialist country, right? Well, I'll say it again. We're not going to have. If a communist gets elected to run New York, it can never be the same. But we have tremendous.
Mamdani is not a
power to
communist.
run
Just, I know there's a little bit of
places
confusion about
we
that.
can run DC. I mean, we're looking
we'll
at
just
DC.
real
We don't
quickly.
want crime in DC. We want the city to run well. Susie Wiles is working very closely with the mayor, and they're doing all right. I mean, in the sense that we would run it so good, it would be run so proper. We get the best person to run it. The crime would be down to a minimal.
I know people get
much
confused
less.
between communism and
We're thinking about
socialism a
doing it,
lot.
to be honest with you, we wanna,
He is a
we
socialist,
want
and some people don't like
capital that's run
socialism, so
flawlessly.
if you're against
And it
him
wouldn't be
for
hard
being
for
a
us to do it.
socialist, I get
and we've had a
that.
good
But you can't be
relationship with
against
the
him for
mayor.
being a communist because
Testing
he's
it
not
to
a
see if it
communist.
works.
That's just
But,
not
New York
what
City
he
will
is.
run properly. We're going to bring New York back. I love New York. You know, I loved New York for a long time. Then we had a bunch of crooked people in there. You have an attorney general who's a total stone cold crook. New York State, Letitia James, a total crook. All they do is want to go after political opponents. They do what's ever expeditious for them. She's the one that took out Cuomo because she wanted to run for governor. And then she ended up getting 1% of the vote. She polled at 1%, she dropped out, went back to Attorney General. You have a lot of crooked things going on in New York. We're gonna straighten out New York. Maybe we're gonna have to straighten it out from Washington. But when I see a communist who has actually gotten a Democrat, pretty much gotten a Democrat nomination, they also went to that new form of voting, which is a beauty. You go in there in third place, you come out in first. That's that form of voting that they have gone to. You know what I'm talking about. It's not too good. We're going to do something for New York. I can't tell you what yet, but we're going to make New York great again. Also, we're going to make it great again with the country.
Can't
What we've
tell
done
you
in this
what
country
yet.
in the last 6 months, nobody has
What are they
ever
planning
seen it.
for New York?
And I told the story. The King of Saudi Arabia
That
was
they
over there.
can't
They
tell
gave
us.
$5.1 trillion between Saudi Arabia and UAE, Qatar. 3 stops. 5.1 trillion coming into our country as an investment, biggest investment ever made.
Great.
And
How
it's
does
all
that help
really
our
good
deficit?
stuff. I mean, all real
Which I
big,
thought was really
good
the point
stuff.
of this.
Energy projects, big things. But they all 3 told me
I guess it
essentially
boosts the
same
economy?
thing. We thought your country was dead. And now
Maybe?
you've got the hottest country in the world. We're right now riding the hottest country. We all, and you can all be proud of it. We're in the hottest country. This is the hottest country in the world. There's nobody close. Made hotter by some great pilots and great machines that nobody else has. Those great, big, beautiful machines, they rode those machines right into the toughest territory, and nobody knew what the hell happened. And then they hit their targets perfectly, and it was complete and total obliteration. And that's why that war ended, Steve. They told me that's why the war ended. The war ended when they saw that, it was over. And we're very proud of it. But we have the hottest country in the world right now from a country that was close to dead. And if I didn't win, if you would have had the other person win, we all know who she is, whether it was she or Biden, they're the same. He may have been more competent than her, and that's hard to believe, right? But if you had that ideology in, I don't believe you would have had a country anymore. I think you would have had a country that was broken up. But we had a dead country, now we have the hottest country in the world, and everybody knows it, and everybody said it.
It's so hot
Mr.
right
Vice
now,
President,
guys.
do you have anything to say?
Well, thank you, Mr. President. I just want to say that I'm very proud of the whole team. I think everybody has worked together. You see Pete and Marco and Steve working on some of the diplomacy, Christy and Pam working on the border. We just have a really, really solid team, and we've done a lot of good work. And in particular, I want to congratulate the White House staff led by the president on getting the One Big Beautiful Bill passed. I was personally skeptical. Sorry, I never told you this, but I was skeptical we'd be able to get that thing done by July 4th. We did it because we worked together and we worked very well. So it's an honor to be a part of it, but I'm really proud of you guys for doing a great job.
The beautiful thing about it, it had something for everyone.
That's right.
Most people said it had to be broken into 7 bills. It's so big. The problem was that some of those 7 have nothing for anyone, but they had to be done for the country. You know, sometimes you have to do things for the country that aren't necessarily popular. We had a couple of them, and that wouldn't have worked. So the One Big Beautiful Bill, many people said it could never be approved. Too big, too everything. There's too much. But it had something very big and very important for everyone, and it's great for the country. And remember, the Democrats have come up with a false narrative, you know, just whatever. It's just a line that they send to everybody and that they print. I think in the case of this, it's death, death. Everyone's going to die. I heard that. Everyone's going to, just the opposite. Everyone's going to live. What we're doing is saving our country and making it much bigger, better, and stronger than it ever was. I'd like to ask, Marco's been doing such a great job. Do you have anything to say?
Well, it's just going through a list here, Mr. President, and I think the Vice President's pointed out to the great team you have, but and all these achievements that have happened domestically. But you think about it, under your leadership, we prevented and ended a war between India and Pakistan. NATO's now at 5% for the first time ever, the highest numbers ever. A peace deal between the Democratic Republic of Congo and Rwanda. A 12-day war that ended with an American operation that we're the only country in the world that could have done.
We've already run all these things down in a totally separate press conference.
Between Azerbaijan and
I guess that's all this guy has to say. Marco Rubio,
the entire Middle East and the infrastructure of it has
involved in all
to
these
change
things
because of Syria and Lebanon, and it hasn't even been 6 months.
Sure.
It hasn't even been 6 months, so it's a great testament to your leadership in this.
He inherited a pretty fucked up world.
Fantastic.
You know, can't
just
take that away from
she's
him.
involved
He came
in
into
so
office
much.
at a
She's so
crazy time.
talented and so good, and she's working on a couple of little things like Harvard, who was given $5.5 billion over a short period of time. We caught him on that one. It's crazy, but
Caught
you're
him.
working on so much. You want to bring education back to the States. How are you doing?
Well, absolutely, and thank you for the opportunity. And I think on the big, beautiful bill, what we saw, you know, was school choice. Did this funding on a national basis at the state level, but there are opportunities now for scholarships more and more often for kids who are attending schools. It's going to be a big turnaround. I think one of the biggest accomplishments we had over the past week was University of Pennsylvania with the Title IX ruling that Leah Thomas was stripped of her title. Riley Gaines and Paula Scanlon and other women who have stood, you know, so strong against men and women's sports. And when you put out the the executive order, I mean, that just solidified and gave them the opportunity. So those are a couple of really, really big wins, and thank you for that opportunity.
And how are you doing with Columbia and Harvard?
We're negotiating hard. I think we're getting close to having that happen. It's not wrapped up as fast as I wanted to, but we're getting there.
Okay, good. And you've done a fantastic job. Thank you very much.
You've been a good team.
Yep,
Good team.
you have a great team.
Around this table, a lot of people who help with that.
That's right. Thank you very much. Maybe just in closing, you know, we spent a lot of time, effort, very little money on this room. This is called the Cabinet Room. It's been here for a long time. And it had some pictures that were not many of them and not very good ones. And I actually spent time in the vaults. The vaults are where we have a lot of great pictures and artwork. And I picked it all myself. I'm very proud of it. That's Andrew Jackson, great Andrew Jackson.
He redecorated the cabinet meeting room?
A gentleman named, and we call him President Polk.
Seems like a good use of time and taxpayer dollars, I think,
People don't
right?
realize he was one of the, he was a one-termer, but he was a very good president. But, and I'm not sure I should be doing this, he actually gave us
Oh,
the state
thanks,
of
Star
California.
Kitten.
Yeah, he was the one. He was the one. So I'm not sure, maybe he won't be there for long. But if you notice, the frame is the exact same size almost as the other one is Andrew Jackson. So that was a part of the reason too, I have to be honest.
Good job,
But
Trump.
Polk is actually a very good president who's got the same frame that I needed, okay? And up here you have the original George Washington right behind the light. And then you have Dwight Eisenhower, who was a very underrated president, built the interstate system, and he was the toughest president, I guess, until we came along, but I don't mind giving up that crown, because I don't want to be too tough on it, but we want to be humane, but he was the toughest president.
We want to be
on
humane.
immigration. He,
haven't heard him say that one
was
yet.
very strong at the borders.
I wish he said
Very,
that
very
more.
strong.
Truly.
And sometimes you can be too strong. He was strong on the borders, and during a certain period of time, they were so strong that almost every farmer in California went bankrupt. And we have to remember that. We have to work together. We have to remember that. But he was a very good president, and a very good general, and a very good president. And I thought he deserved a position somewhere on this floor. And then you have, this is very exciting to me, he was not a Republican, to put it mildly, but he was,
Exciting.
you know, he was a four-termer. He was Franklin Delano Roosevelt. And if you notice, there were a lot of ramps outside.
Four-termer?
Ramp, people say it's an unusual place for a ramp. It was
3.
because of him. He was wheelchair-bound, but he was an amazing man. It's an amazing portrait, and we used to have him in the room, a different portrait, and it was a terrible portrait. It was almost like it was done by a child. And I used to say, you know, I can't believe that he would have approved of that portrait of himself. And I was in the vaults and looking at things. I said, what's that? And we have some great curators here. We have 6 curators at the White House. They have 2 for paintings, they have them for furniture, they have them for different
I
things.
can't think of
I guess, of course, there's
anything
no object.
less important
Maybe I'd have one, but
with
that's all right.
everything that's
We have
going
6
on in the
that are very
world
talented,
than the paintings he chose to put in
FDR.
this room.
I said, really? Let me see it. They took off the wrappings, very well preserved. And he said, that's the picture they've been looking for years. That was the picture of Franklin Delano Roosevelt. And I
Tell
said,
me in the
"Oh,
chat, am I
wow."
wrong? Tell me if you care what paintings are up in the cabinet meeting room.
It just doesn't work. It doesn't work if you have, I want to be nice, but it doesn't
This is how
work
he's
if you have a
closing
big
the
frame, a little
cabinet
frame,
meeting.
you know, But it's.
He
like
spoke to
perfection,
Netanyahu
perfection.
yesterday. We've got
The mirror was
issues
down
with
in the
Iran
walls also. I said,
and
"Where's this
Gaza.
from?" And
Don't
it's
worry about the Epstein
very
list.
old, very storied,
We've got,
very beautiful. We
you
put that
know,
up.
the
And
economy's
then
doing
over
well.
there is,
Grocery prices
Honest
are
Abe
down.
Lincoln. And that picture was in his.
What the fuck are we
in his
talking
bedroom.
about the paintings in the
And we
room
thought that
for?
this would be a very important place because this is where wars are ended. I'm not going to say wars are declared. I'm going to say wars are ended. Okay, we'll be positive. And that's the picture of Abe Lincoln from his bedroom. Sat in the bedroom for many, many years. That was his favorite picture of himself. And the Lincoln bedroom's very famous. You remember when Bill Clinton had it and he rented it out to people. Okay? We don't do that.
Someone
But
says,
it's an
I thought we were
incredible-
trying for
it's an
efficiency
incredible
here. You
room.
really
We
only
took
need
that
one
picture
art
from his
curator.
bedroom. That's Abe Lincoln. And then over here you have John Adams, and it's they were the first occupants of the White House, 1800. And John Quincy Adams, Mrs. Adams, they were the first occupants. So we have them looking at each other, and in between their stare is Abraham Lincoln.
Like, it's not like I have a
trying to
problem
make
with him
peace.
doing this.
And that picture was in a room that I
But
have that was not important like the cabinet.
This is
I
like
gave
an
it up.
important
I said,
meeting.
I have to give it up because that's one of the greatest pictures in the White House. The White House is tremendous art.
They could have released just a
And
separate
the
video
Oval
talking
Office
about
over
all
there
the nice
with
art
all
that he
that,
picked
that's
out.
really
I would have loved
something.
that.
Then we got the drapes, and we got the whole thing. We got new drapes. We got new.
He picked out the
wasn't a big
drapes
expense for
too.
it,
Don't get
very
it
small.
twisted.
And we took some of the chinaware and silverware and trophyware, they call it, from the
If you
vaults,
like
and they
anything in this
cleaned
room,
up, hadn't been
it's because of
shined
Donald
up in
Trump.
100 years. Some of this has sat in the vaults for over 100 years. Amazing. Over 100 years. Many of the pictures that were put up in the Oval Office as an example, those two as an example. So he was president. They moved in 1800, and he won the election, I believe, in November of 1800, John Quincy Adams. And we thought that would be, he was considered to be a good president, and he was the first occupant of the White House, so it sort of made sense. And I love the frame of those pictures. Look at those frames, you know, I'm a frame
Look
person.
at those frames.
Sometimes I like frames more than I like the pictures. And we have the flags of the Marines, and Space Force now has its own flag. I'm very proud of Space Force, but the Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines, Space
How
Force,
many
the whole thing.
successful launches has
And
Space
the
Force
Coast
done?
Guard is right there. You never forget the Coast Guard. They do a great job. So we have the flags throughout the office, and it's really become quite a beautiful place. I don't want to tell this. Oh, Marco pointed it out. I was going to leave the clock. So as president, you have the power. If I go into the State Department or Department of Commerce or Treasury, if I see anything that I like, I'm allowed to take it. Do you believe this? So I'm in Marco's. I see this gorgeous clock, grandfather clock. And there it is. I said, Marco. He didn't know about it. I had to read him the rule and regulation.
Space Force is
Marco,
doing
I
stuff,
love
guys.
this clock. Look at it. It's beautiful. He said, what clock? I said, the clock that's in the other room is incredible, and nobody gets to see it there. Marco, I tried to talk him into it first, and it sort of worked, and then I had to use a little more. I said, I'd love to take that clock out and put it in the cabinet room. He said, no, are you serious? I said, Marco, I have the right to do it, Marco. And he said, all right, what the hell? So that's his contribution to the cabinet room. But it's, by the way, it's an incredible clock, and you know, it's an important room, so you may see it again. Maybe we'll move it back sometime. Anyway, so that's pretty much it. But it really is great. Here,
That's all the important stuff today, guys. No more questions about the Epstein
lamps
list.
have been very important, actually, whether people love them or not. But they're, if you see pictures like Pearl
Some people are
Harbor,
confused by me continuing to bring up the Epstein list. To be clear, I don't care about the Epstein list. Someone asked Trump about it earlier, and Trump said, "Who wants to hear about that?" You can. It's on YouTube. You can go back and look at it.
It's a sacred room, and I don't think they made movies from here. You never know what they do. But they were missing medallions. See the medallions on top? They had a chain going into the ceiling. And I said, you can't do that. You have to have a medallion. They said, what's a medallion? I said, I'll show you. And then we got some beautiful medallions. And you see them. They were put up there. It makes the lamps look better. So we did these changes. And, you know, when you think of it, the cost was almost nothing. We also painted the room a nice color, beige color.
Almost nothing, but not nothing.
Really something. The only question is, will I gold leaf the corners? You could maybe tell me my cabinet could take a vote. You see the top line moldings.
This is great, guys. We're interior designing this office with Trump in real time.
You see that in the Oval Office.
I'm sure this is what everybody's tuning in for.
Become very wealthy.
Do you think that everyone else in the room is looking at their watch?
Painting it is easy, but it won't look right. And the question is whether or not we should gold leaf it. Linda, do you have an opinion?
We're going to decide right now. Should we gold leaf? Tell me in the chat. Should he gold leaf the ceiling?
How about, would you gold leaf it?
I was going to ask about McKinley. One of your favorite presidents.
Well, McKinley was a great president who never got credit. In fact, they changed the name of Mount McKinley, and I changed it back because he should have been the people of Ohio.
Take that, liberals.
The governor of Ohio. The people of Ohio were very happy when I did that. They were very insulted. They took the name of Mount McKinley off. That was done by Obama a little while ago, and
what an asshole!
I had to change it back. I changed it back. He actually was a great president. He was a president. He was the tariff, the most, I guess, since me. I think I'm going to outdo him, but he was a tariff president. He believed that other countries should pay for the privilege of coming into our country and taking our jobs and taking our treasure. That's the way he explained it. They took our jobs and they took our treasure, and for that they should pay.
Our treasure?
He made them pay, and he built a tremendous fortune. In fact, in 1887, they had the Great Tariff Committee was set up in 1887 because our country had so much money, we didn't know what to do with it. And they set up a committee of, as they called them, elites, a term that we have to change because I think a lot of the people that are elites aren't elite. I think the people that aren't elite are elite, so we're going to have to maybe switch that around somehow. But they had a committee that was set up to spend the money because it was such a large amount of money at that time. It was nobody had seen anything like it, and it all came in from tariffs. And people didn't pay tax. There was no income tax system. I told you that came back in 1913. that came back and lived well for a while, and then you had the Great Depression. And then later, they tried to bring back tariffs, but the whole thing was, this was after the Depression. It was one of the great misconceptions, is people like to say, oh, but it was during the, but no, the country had a Great Depression, and then after the Depression, long after it started, they brought back tariffs to see if they could save it, but it took them really 25 years. When you say about 25 years to get out of the Great Depression, a lot of people don't understand that. But I thought it would be interesting for you to get a little view of this room. This is a very important room, very powerful room, great room. And we've done similar, but even beyond this, in the Oval Office, we brought back pictures of some of the great presidents. Many of them were in the vaults for over
That tariff committee was actually created to reduce the economic impact of tariffs,
rather than sitting in a vault
not to
downstairs
spend the money brought in by
for
tariffs.
128 years. I thought we should display that, and we did that, I think, in a really good way. We've gotten very high marks. But it's interesting. People walk into that room and they look around the room. They don't even want to talk to me. They could look at it for hours. It's funny when people come into the Oval Office. It's such an incredible. It's a sacred place. When people come into the Oval from the biggest people in the world, presidents, prime ministers, kings, queens, one case at least, queens, and the biggest business people in the world, they walk into that office and. They always say there's no place like this in the whole world in terms of the power. I mean, it's beautiful and all, but
so he just praised this committee from the 1800s,
full floors
who
of
decided that they should reduce tariffs.
And they walk in there and they say, "There's no place like this."
This is not an anti-Trump message. I'm just all I did was look up what that committee did.
The physicality of the room itself. So it's an honor to have you all, media. It's an honor to have you. I just want to say we have a fantastic cabinet. Every one of them is a star in my book. And if they're not, I'll let you know about it. I'll throw them to the wolves.
If I change my mind later, I'll tell you.
Because our country comes first, right? But I just want to thank you all for being here. It's been a lot of fun. Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you, press. Thank you, press. Thank you, press. Thank you, press.
I'll tell you some other time. Thank you.
Thank you, press.
Yeah, I will.
Thank you, press.
Are we talking about next week or next?
Alrighty then. Well, there you have it. Not a lot of new information, but a little bit of insight into what's going on in the White House. Thanks everybody for joining me. Appreciate you all giving a shit. I hope that you will like the video. Leave comments. Share it. Go subscribe on Instagram, TikTok. Make sure you're following on YouTube for these lives. Make sure that if you want to support the channel, do it at Substack. The link is in the bio and the description of this video. And thanks everybody. I'll talk to you soon.